Well, let's talk now to John Piekos, the former Detective Chief Inspector, CEO of Safe and Free. He himself was involved in some investigations back in the day in Oldham and Bradford. He came across two occasions of systemic abuse of young girls, but was repeatedly told to cover up the case so as not to inflame racial tensions. Let's have a look. John, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Tell us what happened. You now run a charity with two of the victims, and this national inquiry must have at least come as some good news to you and to them. But tell us what happened back in the day in Oldham and Bradford.
Well, I was a serving police officer in Manchester at the turn of the millennia, just around that time, maybe just slightly before. I can't remember the exact year, but I was in uniform, and we had problems with one of the local children's home where children were constantly going missing, and they were out of control and they were doing damage to the property, and the staff felt that there was nothing they could do to control them. My officers were there all the time, and it just seemed to be a massive waste of their time and a problem that they seemed incapable of resolving. So I decided to go and try and figure out what was going on and see if we could work it out. When I was there, the staff told me that the children were, would damage the place, do whatever they wanted, and there was nothing that they could do, which didn't seem appropriate. The places were being wrecked. And at the same time, the children would then walk out of the home any time of night or day, get in cars, and they specifically mentioned with Pakistani males, and then they wouldn't come back, sometimes for days. They were, as far as they were concerned, these children were being sexually exploited, and I said, well, this is ridiculous. We can do something about it. I said to them, the first thing we'll do, the next time one of your children starts smashing the place up and you can't deal with it, call me, and we'll take the child into the police station and keep them there until they've calmed down, and we'll bring them back and they can apologise to you. And that was the very first thing that we did, and we did that within literally a few days. And the child stayed in the police station for a couple of days with us. They were very concerned that we were going to criminalise the children. I said, not at all. We're going to release them without charge as soon as they've calmed down and come back to you. So we did that. It was a bit controversial, a bit unusual. Controversial and very unusual. The second thing I said we were going to do was I was going to go around to all the local mosques, and I was going to secure the support of the imams, and I was going to tell them that if they continue to do if people continue to do that, they would be arrested for abducting children and keeping them from care. I went out with that strong message and spoke to a number of imams who all pledged support. To be fair, they said that they would preach on it and send that message out. I said that if they were found, we would make sure that the publicity of the world was glaring at them and they would know about it. So the message went out. Within a few weeks, a man was arrested, bringing with a child in his taxi, but it wasn't a paid fare, and there was no rational explanation for why this child would be there. So they both came to the police station. It's a place of safety. The child wouldn't say anything to us at all, wouldn't speak to us, tell us what was going on, and the taxi driver made no comment interviews. So I sent the officer back to the children's home and said, get a statement. If they say that this taxi driver shouldn't have had this child with her, I'll charge abduction. But the staff had told us that they wouldn't give a statement, and when I pushed this with my officers, they told me that they'd been told that they weren't to cooperate any longer with our inquiry because it wasn't in the best interest of the children or something of that nature.
And did they indicate who had told them that?
No, they didn't. I mean, we never got another call back about the children kicking off in the care home, but there were, I imagine it was to do with the fact that they didn't like the intense level of input that we were doing into the children's care home. Okay, so look, that's a management decision for the children's care home, and I walked away, licked my wounds, and wasn't thinking too much about it. But my boss came over to me and said, John, about this pet project that you're doing, you do realise you've got some really important, you measured on specifics, burglaries, robberies, the speed of response, etc. You cannot let your standards slip. make sure. I'm not going to tell you not to carry on with your pet project. Is the way he described it,
Yeah.
which I felt was which carried all the messages that I needed to know.
Right.
But you can carry on with your pet project, but you better not let your standards slip. And I said, don't worry, my standards are fine, thank you.
Yeah.
But as I came
that was obviously a very clear warning that he didn't think what you were doing was very important.
well, I'm not sure that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what he thought, but it seemed like he was giving me permission not to do what I felt was important, and I just found that really strange, especially as it was time to coincide with the response that we received from the children's care home. And so I can only conclude, actually, that he was in fact partnerships, so he would have been responsible for subdivisional partnerships. I can only conclude that he'd got that message from somewhere. He certainly hadn't got it from me, and it was the same message that the children's care home had received. And I don't know what their message was, but it seemed to me like both of us received gentle, get back into line messages from our management.
Right. And clearly that's what happened in an awful lot of different police stations up and down the country, because that seems to have been the case in Telford, certainly the case in Rotherham, certainly the case, as you say, in Oldham and Bradford. Have you got any confidence that this new commissioned national inquiry will actually look into that kind of detail?
Well, I think the issue is exactly the one you've just raised. I mean, as far as I was concerned, I was dealing with maybe not a completely unique problem, but a local problem.
Yeah.
Right? It was a local problem at my local care home. I wasn't sure what the other care homes were like. Maybe some of the others were bad as well. But if you go higher up the tree, there were people in my organisation that knew that this wasn't just one care home, that this was every care home. So actually, the people higher up that tree should be thinking a different problem-solving approach. I'm thinking of a local problem-solving approach. I'm prepared to ride roughshod over community feelings and upset people for a local solution. But actually, it needed a bigger solution than that. And it's not just then at my force level, because it goes across organisations into the social services and into the other organisations that are at play there. There was a kind of, an understanding, organisational operational understanding. I remember going to a multi-agency public protection meeting, which I was deputising for my one of my for the normal police representative at, and amongst the things, the subjects that were talked about was a 15-year-old girl who had settled down with her boyfriend, a 21-year-old man, who was now living with him, and the NHS and the were saying, well, we need to get contraception and make sure that she's not got STIs. And I said, but wait, hang on a minute. This is a 15-year-old girl, and she's with a bloke who I mean, I'm not. It's not relevant what his culture was,
Right.
but it's a different culture.
Yeah.
But that's not really relevant in this case. She was a 15-year-old girl, and he was a man, and he'd got her living in his apartment. And I was told, well, you don't understand. This is the first time she's had a stable relationship, and we can't interfere with inquiries like that because it would cause the child enormous upset and concern. Now, life's complicated and it's difficult. But when you allow yourself to hide behind great big screens of convenience like that, then things don't happen organisationally either. And these problems, Mike, all contribute to the malaise that's affected us. We'll turn away from it and not look because it's too difficult to solve.
Right. And then you miss much
higher levels.
Yes, and you miss much bigger problems which are going on at every level as well. John, listen, great to talk to you. I'm sure we'll talk to you again soon. John Piekos there, former Detective Chief Inspector, now CEO of Safe and Free.